All right, Onya Mark Community, I am here to talk about a very, very popular question that I get asked frequently from our current clients, from prospective clients, and from other marketers that are genuinely curious when it comes to paid advertising. And that is, how do I set an advertising budget, or how much does it cost to advertise? And while I love to just give a black and white answer, there are a few factors that will really help you gauge on how to set an advertising budget. So I'm going to break them down for you. And in case we haven't met, my name is Ashley Monk. I'm the CEO and lead strategist at Onya, an online advertising, social media, and strategic agency based out of Indy. So this is the Onya Mark podcast. Onya Mike, get set and listen. Wow, we butchered that today. And that is because at the time that I'm recording this, I feel like I have a little bit of mommy brain happening at home. Anyway, all of that aside, let's go ahead and dig into the meat of it and really discuss what are the factors that help to set an effective advertising budget. And of course, it depends. And so I'm going to give you the four primary factors that are going to play into this, in addition to some other questions that I get asked that will hopefully set you up for success so that you can leave and know exactly how much to spend or plan to spend. So first factor to consider is your audience B2B or B2C? Are you going to be advertising for business to business or business to consumer? Because the answer to that question is going to let you know, okay, business to business, these tend to be professional services that are going to be a greater investment than that of a business to consumer company. Not always, but traditionally, this business to business investment will probably look more, be more expensive and harder to get the attention of that person. And so knowing who you want to go after, and of course with business to business, it's a little bit more challenging to leverage social media, the social proof that you can get organically from proof of concept behind your products. It takes traditionally a lot more work from a business to business standpoint to be able to build up an organic reach and to be able to really have that clout, if not possible. For instance, to give you an example, let's say I sell consulting services or as a business owner, right? Those consulting services are going to be a lot more expensive than someone that is going to be selling a lower dollar, lower cost item such as lawn care and home services. And as a result, it's going to take a little bit more spend to get in front of the attention of that B2B person. So that's the first factor. The next is going to be your lifetime value of a customer. You can, and you probably should, set a lower advertising budget if somebody purchases from you and it's a one and done. It's they come to you, let's say you sell a product, maybe it's a phone case, maybe it is, I don't know, some kind of online boutique or something where they could purchase from you once. Of course, you want them to come back. But let's say it is only something that you want once. Well, that lifetime value, even if they do come back, is going to be a lot lower than a higher ticket service. And as a result, you really need to have your costs lower and set a lower budget accordingly. So that's the next factor, is how much does it cost to obtain that person, and what is the lifetime value of a client or a customer to you? The next is going to be, what channel or what medium are you advertising on? Traditionally, platforms like Facebook and Instagram cost less than LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network and it's a lot more targeted toward higher caliber and professionals. Therefore, the cost per click to Facebook, Facebook is anywhere, I would say average is around $1, and LinkedIn is closer to $6 to $20 at the time that I'm recording this. And it's going to be more expensive to advertise there. Newer platforms like TikTok, who's just really taking the ground running with their advertising platform, or even a tool like Hulu that just became self-serve, usually there are going to be less volume and less people on there, and so it can be less expensive and you can get by with a lower budget on those platforms. Typically, not typically, but pretty much in any case of the matter, online advertising works like an auction, and it's very similar to the stock market. The more people that are bidding and competing for a certain stock, the higher the cost goes. And it's really the supply and demand. And so the same factors are and will correlate with advertising. And so the channel or the medium that you use is going to play a factor in how much that cost is. Finally, who is your audience and how much is that competition going to be? the more competitive and the more popular your audience, let's say middle-aged moms with kids that shop at Lululemon compared to somebody hyper niche, middle-aged moms that shop at Lululemon, but also are into arts and crafts and are looking to buy online art services, that's going to be a little bit more of a specific person than it is just that general broad targeting. And so the more niche your audience is and the more historically less competitive it is, usually that cost will go down. Whereas the more competitive and the more popular, like fitness industries, things like that, those audiences are going to be more expensive because the more people bidding on that different audience, the higher the cost is going to be for you. So those are the 4 factors. I'll read them off to you again. We've got number 1, are you doing business to business or business to consumer? Number 2, it's the lifetime value of your client. Number 3, channel or medium. Number 4, audience or competition for that audience. Those are the 4 that you need to remember. But you're probably wondering, okay, well, how much do I spend, right? These are the factors that are really important to take spend into account. But when it comes to how much you should actually spend or what's a healthy budget, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. So to give you some parameters, most companies spend 10 to 20% on their marketing. It may sound counterintuitive, but usually the smaller company is the more they spend, closer to that 20% mark, because they know that as an investment, they need to be getting their name out there. And so the more their revenue goes, the less they have to spend because they're already established. And then also that 10% can go a little bit farther because the company is bigger and can allocate that budget elsewhere. But traditionally, those companies spend that higher amount to be able to get their name out there. So that's the first factor. If you're wondering how to allocate for advertising, you need to look at your marketing budget as a whole and figure out if that 10 to 20% makes sense for you. The next factor is going to be how many campaigns are you wanting to run? If you're brand new to advertising and you're not working with an agency, then you're probably going to want to start very, very simple and leverage your budget on one campaign and on a simple campaign with a very easy to set up and measure objective. But the rule of thumb when it comes to setting this budget usually comes by looking at, depending again on your audience and targeting, because there's so many factors here, what the easiest way to kind of get a basic grasp is what is the platform you're advertising telling you to spend? What do they suggest? Like, what is the default setting when it comes to an advertising budget? And that will usually tell you what kind of the minimum bid is going to be acceptable. You know, Facebook used to be, you could actually get very far on $5 a day as a budget. And with inflation and with how the platform's changed, it is really, really challenging to stretch that budget and to give the algorithm a lot of data to work with. And so that minimum now is set at closer to $15 or $20 a day. And so that will typically serve as the gauge for you. But that is the other factor to consider. At the end of the day, if I were going to give any kind of feedback, the minimum that I would usually spend is that $20 if you're an established company and you have some social presence, $30 if you're newer is the minimum that I would spend to make your investment worthwhile. Of course, don't take that in a vacuum because as I mentioned, those are just 4 of the top consideration factors that we will use when setting a budget and knowing how to spend on a campaign. So every situation is a little bit different. Every person is a little bit custom. And so hopefully these decision factors and will be able to help you determine what makes the most sense for you and your business. All right. I hope that this episode was valuable until we connect again next week. But I would love to know, what did you learn today that maybe you didn't know or that you think is going to be very helpful to implement in your business? I would love for you to drop a comment or to write to us and let us know what you think that is. Until next week, on your mark, get set, and grow.